The Power of Inner Peace, a Gautama Buddha story. Prologue, The Restless King. Long ago, in the ancient kingdom of Kosala, there ruled a mighty king named Vidudaba. He had vast wealth, a powerful army, and countless subjects who obeyed his every command. Yet despite all his worldly possessions, he was deeply troubled. His mind was restless, filled with worries about war, betrayal, and the fear of losing his throne. One evening, as he stood on his palace balcony, gazing at the setting sun, he sighed heavily. His most trusted minister, Vishoka, approached him and asked, "My lord, why do you look so troubled? You have everything a man could desire." The king replied, "I have everything, Vishoka, except peace. My mind is like a stormy ocean, never calm, never still. I have heard of a great sage, the Buddha, who teaches the path to inner peace. I must meet him." And so, the king set out on a journey to find the enlightened one. Chapter 1. The Encounter with the Buddha. After days of travel, King Vidudaba arrived at Jetavana Grove, where the Buddha was teaching his disciples. The moment the king saw the Buddha, he was struck by his serene presence. The Buddha sat under a great Bodhi tree, his face radiant with tranquility, his eyes filled with boundless compassion. The king bowed deeply and said, "O Blessed One, I am King Vidudaba. I possess great power, yet my mind knows no peace. I am tormented by fear, anger, and endless desires. Can you teach me how to find the peace that you possess?" The Buddha smiled gently and replied, "Great king, peace does not come from power or wealth. It arises from within. Sit with me, and I shall tell you a story." Chapter 2. The Story of the Two Merchants. Once there were two merchants who set out on a long journey to trade their goods. The first merchant, Suraj, carried a heavy sack of gold on his back. The second merchant, Manoj, carried only a small bag of food and a water gourd. As they traveled, Suraj grew increasingly fearful. Every rustle in the bushes made him anxious. Was it a thief? Every stranger he met seemed suspicious. His mind was filled with worry. And he could not sleep at night, clutching his gold tightly. Manoj, on the other hand, walked lightly. He shared his food with fellow travelers, rested when tired, and slept peacefully under the stars. When Suraj asked him, "How can you be so carefree?" Manoj replied, "I carry only what I need. Fear comes from clinging to what we cannot keep forever." Eventually, bandits attacked them. Suraj, unwilling to let go of his gold, fought and was badly wounded. Manoj, seeing the danger, simply handed over his small bag and walked away unharmed. Days later, Suraj, weak and injured, met Manoj again and asked, "How are you still happy after losing everything?" Manoj smiled and said, "I lost nothing of true value. My peace was never in that bag." The Buddha paused and looked at the king. "Vidudaba, you are like Suraj, carrying the heavy burden of your kingdom, fearing loss, and thus losing your peace. True peace comes from letting go." Chapter 3. The Lesson of the Candle Flame. The king frowned. "But how can I let go of my duties? A king must protect his kingdom." The Buddha pointed to a candle burning nearby. "See this flame, O king. It gives light but does not cling to the wax. It burns steadily, unaffected by the wind, unless it resists. If it tries to fight the wind, it flickers and dies. But if it accepts the wind's nature, it remains steady. Your kingdom is like the wax, and your mind is the flame. Rule with wisdom, but do not cling. Perform your duties without attachment, and your mind will be as calm as this flame." The king remained silent, contemplating the Buddha's words. Chapter 4. The Test of Anger. Just then, a messenger rushed in, bowing hastily. "My king, General Amar has betrayed you. He has joined the enemy and marches toward Kosala." The king's face turned red with rage. "That traitor, I will crush him." He stood up, ready to storm away. The Buddha spoke softly. Vidudaba, is this anger bringing you peace? The king froze, his fists clenched, but then he remembered the candle flame. He took a deep breath and sat down again. What should I do, Lord Buddha? How can I face this betrayal without anger? The Buddha replied, when a poisonous arrow strikes a man, he does not first ask who shot it. He removes the arrow. Your anger is the poison. Remove it first, then act with clarity. The king closed his eyes, steadied his breath, and let his rage dissolve. When he opened his eyes, he said, I will send envoys to negotiate. War is not the only path. The Buddha nodded. Now you are ruling with wisdom, not anger. Chapter 5. The Inner Kingdom. Over the following days, King Vidudaba stayed at Jetavana, listening to the Buddha's teachings. He learned 1. The impermanence of power. All kingdoms rise and fall. Only inner peace is unshaken. 2. The danger of craving. Desire is like drinking salt water. The more you have, the thirstier you become. The path of mindfulness. A guarded mind brings happiness. Observe your thoughts like clouds passing in the sky. By the time the king returned to Kosala, his heart had changed. He ruled with compassion, forgave his enemies, and no longer feared loss. His people flourished under his calm leadership. Years later, when his kingdom faced invasion, he surprised everyone by peacefully surrendering rather than causing bloodshed. His ministers protested, but he said, I would rather lose a throne than lose my peace. And so, though he was no longer a king, he became something greater, a man who had conquered himself. The true victory. On his deathbed, Vidudaba smiled and whispered, I have fought many battles, but my greatest victory was finding the stillness within. And so, the power of inner peace triumphed over the might of empires. Peace is not the absence of war, but the presence of wisdom. He who conquers himself is greater than he who conquers 1,000 kings. Chapter 6. The Return to Kosala. King Vidudaba returned to his palace a changed man. His ministers and soldiers noticed a newfound calm in his demeanor. When General Amar's betrayal was brought before the court, instead of ordering immediate retaliation, the king called for a council. We shall send a messenger to Amar. The king declared, let us understand his grievances before we draw our swords. The ministers were astonished. The once fierce king, known for crushing rebellions without mercy, now sought peace. The messenger returned with surprising news. General Amar had not betrayed the kingdom willingly. He had been misled by false rumors that the king planned to execute him. When Amar received the king's message of reconciliation, he fell to his knees in remorse. The king, instead of punishing Amar, embraced him and said, a kingdom divided cannot stand. Let us rebuild trust, not destroy it. From that day, Kosala grew stronger, not through fear, but through loyalty and wisdom. Chapter 7. The Jealous Rival. Not everyone admired the king's transformation. King Dandapani of the neighboring kingdom of Kashi, a ruthless ruler who believed only in power, saw Vidudaba's peace as weakness. A king who does not crush his enemies is a fool. Dandapani sneered. He sent spies to Kosala, hoping to find signs of vulnerability. One day, a spy reported that Vidudaba often meditated alone in the royal gardens, unarmed and unguarded. Seeing an opportunity, Dandapani disguised himself as a merchant and entered Kosala with a hidden dagger, intending to assassinate the peaceful king. As he crept into the garden, he saw Vidudaba seated beneath a tree, eyes closed, face serene. Just as Dandapani raised his dagger, the king spoke without opening his eyes. If you strike me down, what will you gain? Another will take my throne, and your hatred will remain. Dandapani froze. You knew I was here? The king opened his eyes and smiled. I sensed your anger long before you entered the garden. Tell me, friend, what is it you truly seek? Dandapani, shaken, dropped his dagger. I sought power, but now I see that you possess something far greater. The king nodded. Power over others is fleeting. Power over oneself is eternal. That night, Dandapani sat with Vidudaba, listening to the teachings of the Buddha. By dawn, his heart had changed. He returned to Kashi not as an enemy, but as an ally. Chapter 8. The Final Teaching. Years passed, and King Vidudaba grew old. Sensing his time was near, he gathered his ministers, family, and closest advisors. I have ruled this kingdom for many years, he said, but my greatest lesson was not in ruling others. It was in mastering my own mind. Remember, a kingdom may prosper in wealth and arms, but true strength lies in compassion, wisdom, and inner peace. With those words, he closed his eyes, breathed deeply, and passed away with a smile, a king who had conquered not lands, but himself. Epilogue: The Legacy of Peace. Generations later, Kosala was remembered not for its battles, but for its golden age of harmony. All because one king chose peace over power. Travelers still visit the ruins of the old palace, where an inscription remains. The mightiest ruler is not the one who subdues armies, but the one who tames his own heart. And so, the power of inner peace endured long after kingdoms fell.